Captain Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, watching the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. The Galactic Council station was huge, bigger than any human city. Bright lights covered its surface like stars, and ships from dozens of alien races moved around it like busy insects. "Captain, we're getting their docking instructions," said Communications Officer Yoon Hae-jin from her station. Her voice was steady, but Tai-ho could hear the tension underneath. This was only humanity's fourth visit to the station, and each time had been worse than the last. "Follow their orders exactly," Tae-ho replied. "We can't give them any reason to complain about us." Dr. Park So-min looked up from her datapad. She had been reading the same intelligence reports for hours, trying to find something they had missed. "The Veltar attacked 3 more colonies this week," she said quietly. "They took everything valuable and left the rest to burn." Tae-ho's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice calm. "How many people?" 2,000 dead. 500 missing, probably taken as slaves. So-min's hands shook slightly as she spoke. "They're getting bolder, Captain. The attacks are happening closer to Earth." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Everyone knew what those numbers meant. Every attack brought the Veltar Empire closer to humanity's core. Worlds. Every day they waited, more people died. "Admiral Kim's orders are clear," Tae-ho said finally. "We maintain the act no matter what. The survival of our species depends on it." Yoon looked confused. "Sir, I still don't understand why we have to pretend to be weak. Our ships could... What, Lieutenant?" Tae-ho cut her off. "Could fight the entire Galactic Council? The Veltar Empire has 1,000 warships. The E3 have weapons that can crack planets. The Crix Collective has fleets we've never even seen. If they knew what humanity was really capable of, they wouldn't just attack our colonies. They would unite and destroy Earth itself." The young officer looked down at her controls. She was, new to the Harmony, transferred from a patrol ship near the outer colonies. She had seen the Veltar attacks with her own eyes. Like many humans, she wanted to fight back with everything they had. But Tae-ho knew better. For 3 years, humanity had played the role of a weak, primitive species. They used old-style rockets instead of their real engines. They carried simple projectile weapons instead of energy beams. They acted like scared children asking the adults for help. It was the hardest thing any human military had ever done. Every instinct told them to fight, to show these aliens that humanity was not prey. But Admiral Kim Da-eun had convinced Earth's leaders that this was their only chance. Learn everything about the galaxy's powers while appearing harmless. When the time came to reveal the truth, humanity would be ready. The Harmony docked with a soft thud. Through the windows, Tae-ho could see alien workers moving around the docking bay. Most of them ignored the human ship completely. To them, it was just another primitive vessel from a species that would probably be extinct soon. Ambassador Choi. "Is ready, Captain," reported Yoon. Choi Min-ho entered the bridge wearing his formal diplomatic uniform. He was a thin man with kind eyes, but Tae-ho knew he was tougher than he looked. The ambassador had been delivering humanity's complaints to the council for 2 years, knowing that each time he would be ignored or mocked. "Any new instructions from Earth?" Choi asked. Tae-ho handed him a datapad with the encrypted message from Admiral Kim. "Same as always. Present our case, ask for help, and act grateful for whatever scraps they throw us." Choi read the message and nodded. "The colony attack reports?" "All ready," So-min replied. She had spent days preparing detailed evidence of Veltar war crimes, photos of destroyed homes, records of murdered civilians, testimonies from survivors. It was all true, all horrible, and the council would ignore every bit of it. "Remember," Tae-ho said as they prepared to leave the ship, "we're just scared primitives asking for protection. We have nothing to offer except our gratitude." The walk through the station was always uncomfortable. Aliens of dozens of species moved through the corridors, most of them much larger than humans. Some looked like giant insects, others like living crystals or walking plants. A few resembled earth animals, but with too many eyes or arms or heads. Most barely noticed the human delegation. To them, humans were just another of the galaxy's minor species, destined to be conquered or to fade away. The few who did look at them showed only contempt or amusement. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in a great circle. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated areas. At the center was a raised platform where speakers could address the assembly. "The Galactic Council recognizes the delegation from Earth," announced Speaker Zethkor of the Athri. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "You may present your petition." Ambassador Choi walked to the center platform, looking small and vulnerable under the lights. Around him, dozens of alien eyes watched with barely hidden boredom. "Honored representatives," Choi began, "I come before you once again to request aid for my people. The Veltar Empire continues to attack human colonies despite our repeated protests. In the past month alone, a sound like grinding metal interrupted him. It was laughter from the Veltar section. War Prince Kethvar stood up, his 4 arms spread wide in what might have been amusement. "The humans return to whine again," Kethvar said. His voice was deep and harsh, like rocks tumbling down a mountain. "Perhaps if your species had evolved proper defenses instead of soft skin and weak bones, you would not need to beg for help like children." More laughter echoed from around the chamber. The Crick's representative clicked its mandibles in what Tejo recognized as their version of agreement. Even some of the neutral species seemed amused by humanity's predicament. Choi's face remained calm, but Tejo could see his hands clench slightly. "We seek only peaceful resolution to these conflicts. Surely the Council's principles of justice—" "Justice." Kethvar's laugh was louder now. "Justice is the strong taking what they need from the weak. Your people make excellent slaves, human. Your colonies provide good sport for our young warriors. We see no crime in harvesting what is freely offered." "Freely offered?" Choi's voice rose slightly before he caught himself. "We have never offered anything to your empire. You attack without provocation, murder civilians, and steal our people." Speaker Zethkor's crystalline form shimmered with impatience. "The Council has heard these complaints before. The Veltar Empire operates within the bounds of galactic law. Conflicts between spacefaring species and planetary populations are considered internal matters." Tejo felt his hands clench into fists. Internal matters. As if human lives meant nothing at all. The session continued for another hour, with Choi presenting evidence and making pleas that fell on deaf ears. When it was over, the council voted to table the matter for future consideration, which everyone knew meant it would be forgotten completely. As they walked back to their ship, Yoon Hae-jin was shaking with anger. "How can they just ignore us? Don't they care that people are dying?" "They don't see us as people," So-min replied quietly. "To them, we're just animals that learn to use tools." Back on the Harmony, Tejo sealed himself in his quarters and opened a secure channel to Earth. Admiral Kim's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. "How did it go?" she asked. "As expected. They dismissed everything. The Veltar are planning something bigger, Admiral. I could see it in their representatives' eyes." Kim nodded grimly. "We're tracking increased Veltar fleet movements near our borders. How much longer can we maintain this charade?" Tejo looked out his window at the alien ships surrounding the station. "As long as we have to, Admiral. But our people are getting harder to control. They want to fight back, I know. But remember what's at stake, Captain. If we reveal ourselves too early, if we show them what humanity is really capable of, they'll unite against us. And that's a war we can't win. Not yet." The transmission ended, leaving Taeho alone with his thoughts. Somewhere out there, Veltar ships were moving toward human space, planning their next attack. And somewhere else, human engineers were putting the finishing touches on weapons that could crack moons and ships that could cross the galaxy in hours. But for now, humanity had to keep pretending to be weak, had to keep playing the role of victims while their people died. The hardest part wasn't fooling the aliens. The hardest part was living with themselves while they did it. 3 months had passed since the last council meeting, and Ambassador Choi Min-ho was back again. This time he carried evidence that made his stomach turn every time he looked at it. Video recordings from New Busan Colony showed things that would haunt him forever. The attack had been different from the others, more brutal, more organized. The Veltar hadn't just raided for supplies and slaves, they had made an example. "Are you sure about this?" Captain Lee Taeho asked as they walked toward the council chamber. "Once you show them these recordings, there's no taking it back." Choi nodded, his face grim. "The world needs to see what the Veltar really are. Maybe if the council sees children being dragged away in chains, they'll finally act." Dr. Park So-min walked beside them, carrying the data storage device. She had watched the recordings dozens of times, analyzing every detail. "The systematic nature of the attack suggests this isn't random raiding anymore," she said. "They're testing something, new weapons, new tactics." Behind them, Communications Officer Yoon Hae-jin followed quietly. She had volunteered to help present the evidence, even though watching it had left her unable to sleep for days. The council chamber looked the same as always, but something felt different. More aliens were present today, including several species Taeho didn't recognize. Word had spread that the humans were bringing serious evidence this time. Speaker Zethkor called the session to order with his usual crystalline chimes. "The council recognizes the Earth delegation. You may present your case." Choi walked to the center platform and activated the holographic display system. "Honored representatives, I bring evidence of war crimes committed by the Veltar Empire against innocent human civilians." The first image appeared in the air above the platform. It showed New Busan Colony from orbit, looking peaceful and normal. Green fields surrounded the small city, and transport ships moved between the surface and space stations. New Busan Colony was home to 50,000 humans, Choi began. Farmers, teachers, doctors, children. They had no military installations, no weapons beyond simple police equipment. The image changed to show Veltar warships dropping out of hyperspace, dozens of them, far more than needed to attack a defenseless colony. The attack began without warning or demands for surrender, Choi continued. His voice remained steady, but Taeho could see his hands shaking slightly. "Watch what they did." The recording switched to surface cameras. Veltar soldiers moved through the streets, their energy weapons cutting down anyone who tried to run. But the worst part wasn't the killing. It was what came after. They separated the children from their parents, Choi said as the images showed exactly that. Young humans being dragged away while their parents were shot down. Ages 5 to 15 were taken alive. The rest were executed. A sound like grinding gears came from the Veltar section. War Prince Kethvar was laughing. "Strong young slaves. Bring good prices in the outer markets," he said, not bothering to stand. "Why should we waste valuable resources?" Choi's control finally cracked. "Valuable resources? These are children. They have families, dreams, futures." "They had futures," Kethvar corrected. "Now they have owners. This is the natural order, human. The strong take what they need from the weak." The recording continued, showing the systematic destruction of everything the colonists had built. Hospitals bombed, schools burned, farms poisoned. It wasn't conquest. It was extermination. "This isn't warfare," Choi said, his voice rising. "This is genocide. The complete destruction of a peaceful population for no reason except cruelty." Speaker Zethkor's crystalline form flickered with what might have been irritation. The Council has reviewed your evidence. While the methods may seem excessive, to some species the Veltar actions fall within established parameters for resource acquisition. Resource acquisition? Yoon burst out from the gallery. They murdered 45,000 people! Silence. Zethkor's voice rang like breaking glass. Observers will not interrupt these proceedings. Choi tried again. Surely the Council's own laws prohibit the targeting of non-combatants, the execution of civilians, the enslavement of children. A new voice spoke up from the insectoid crick section. Representative Hive Mind. Xerex clicked its mandibles rapidly before speaking. Human concepts of civilian and combatant are primitive distinctions. In proper warfare, all members of the prey species are valid targets. Prey species? Choi repeated. Of course, Xerex continued. Your people lack the evolutionary adaptations necessary for true civilization. No natural weapons, no hive mind, no collective consciousness. You are biologically designed to serve stronger species. More sounds of agreement came from around the chamber. The crystalline Ethri, the gas-based Nathari, even some of the smaller species seemed to nod in approval. Taeho felt something cold settle in his stomach. This wasn't just about the Veltar anymore. The entire council saw humanity as nothing more than animals. We offer technological exchanges, Choi said desperately. Medical knowledge, agricultural techniques, cultural insights. Humanity has much to contribute to galactic civilization. The laughter that followed was even worse than Kethvar's grinding amusement. It came from dozens of species all at once, filling the chamber with sounds of contempt. Primitive medical knowledge? A representative from the methane-breathing Solari wheezed. Your people die from diseases we eliminated millennia ago. Agricultural techniques? Added a plant-like being from the Verdant Coalition. You grow food in dirt like bacteria. Cultural insights? Zethkor's voice held something that might have been pity. What culture could a species barely a century into space travel possibly offer? Choi stood in the center of the platform, surrounded by the mockery of 47 species. Taeho wanted to rush down and pull him away, but they had to maintain the act. Humanity was weak. Humanity was primitive. Humanity needed help. The vote came quickly. 39 species voted to dismiss the human complaint entirely. 5 abstained. 3 voted to consider limited sanctions against the Veltar, but only for inefficient resource allocation. Not a single species voted to actually help humanity. As they walked back to their ship, none of the humans spoke. The corridor seemed longer than before, and the aliens they passed looked at them with even more contempt than usual. Back aboard the Harmony, Taeho gathered his senior staff in the briefing room. The door sealed with a soft hiss, activating privacy shields that would prevent any alien surveillance. They're not going to help, So-Min said quietly. They never were. It's worse than that, Yoon added. They enjoy watching us suffer. Some of those species were taking bets on how long we'll last. Choi slumped in his chair, looking older than his years. 3 years of diplomatic missions, 3 years of begging for help. And they see us as entertainment. Taeho activated his secure communicator. Admiral Kim's face appeared on the screen, her expression grim but unsurprised. I watched the session, she said without preamble. Every word. Admiral, they're not just ignoring us anymore, Taeho reported. They're actively encouraging the Veltar attacks. The whole council sees humanity as prey. Kim was quiet for a long moment. Behind her, Taeho could see other officers moving around what looked like a military command center. Captain, I need you to understand something, Kim said finally. What happened at New Busan wasn't random. Our intelligence suggests it was a test. A test of what? Veltar battle tactics against human defensive positions. They're preparing for something much larger. So-Min leaned forward. How much larger? full-scale invasion. Not just colony raids, but a systematic conquest of human space. Intelligence estimates they're massing over 300 ships for the assault. The briefing room fell silent. 300 Veltar warships could destroy every human colony and still have enough firepower left to crack Earth's orbital defenses. When? Tejo asked. Soon. Maybe weeks, maybe days. The Galactic Council's dismissal of your complaint was the green light they were waiting for. No one will object to the Veltar taking what they want. Yoon looked confused. But Admiral, our real fleet is still being prepared. Kim cut her off. Captain, you need to understand the timeline we're working with. Humanity has been building our true capabilities for decades, but we're not ready for open warfare yet. How long do we need? Choi asked. 6 months minimum. A year would be better. But we may not have either. Tejo felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. What are your orders, Admiral? Continue the mission. Make one more diplomatic attempt. If that fails... Kim paused, looking directly into the camera. We may have to accelerate our timeline. Admiral, what exactly are we accelerating toward? Kim's expression hardened. The end of pretending, Captain. The galaxy thinks humanity is weak because we've let them think it. But there's a difference between being weak and choosing not to show your strength. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge crew alone with their thoughts. Chief Engineer Bae Jun-seo spoke up for the first time. Captain, I've been monitoring our engine modifications. The new systems are working perfectly. What modifications? Yoon asked. Bae smiled grimly. Let's just say the Harmony is faster than any alien ship has a right to expect. Tejo understood. All across human space, ships were being quietly upgraded with technology the aliens had never seen. The emergency alert reached the UES Harmony while they were still docked at the Council Station. Captain Lee Tae-ho stared at the message on his screen, reading it 3 times before the words fully sank in. New Sol Colony was gone. Not raided, not damaged. Gone! How many? He asked Communications Officer Yoon Hae-jin. 200,000 people, sir. Her voice was barely a whisper. The colony was broadcasting live when the attack began. The Veltar. They wanted everyone to watch. Dr. Park So-min pulled up the transmission records on her console. They're calling it a demonstration of proper conquest techniques. It's being broadcast across Council space as an educational program. Tejo felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. New Sol had been humanity's newest colony, a shining example of human engineering and cooperation. Families had waited years for the chance to build new lives there. Show me, he said. Main screen lit up with the final transmission from New Sol. Governor Han Woo-jin stood in his office, looking directly into the camera as explosions lit up the sky behind him. This is Governor Han of New Sol Colony, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. We are under attack by Veltar forces. Our defenses have been overwhelmed. If anyone receives this message, remember us. Remember that we lived free and we died free. The camera shook as something massive struck the government building. When the image stabilized, Veltar soldiers were dragging Han away. The transmission cut to black, but it didn't end there. The Veltar had their own cameras. War Prince Kethvar appeared on screen, standing in what had been New Sol's central plaza. Behind him, the city burned. Human bodies lay scattered in the streets. Behold the fate of species that resist the natural order, Kethvar announced to his galactic audience. The humans call themselves civilized, but watch how quickly their civilization crumbles. He gestured to his soldiers, who brought forward Governor Han. The man's clothes were torn and bloody, but he still held his head high. Renounce your species' independence, Kethvar commanded. Declare humanity's surrender to the Veltar Empire and your death will be quick. Han looked directly into the camera. I am Governor Han Wu-jin of New Seoul Colony, a free human settlement. I do not recognize the authority of any empire over my people. Humanity will never surrender. Kethvar's weapon fired once. Governor, Han fell. The broadcast continued for another hour, showing the systematic destruction of everything the colonists had built. Schools, hospitals, homes, farms, all of it reduced to smoking ruins while the galaxy watched. "Turn it off," Taeho said quietly. The screen went dark, but the silence in the briefing room was somehow worse than the images had been. "Admiral Kim is requesting immediate communication," Yoon reported. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood General Shin Dong-wook, the highest-ranking officer in humanity's military. Taeho had never seen him in person before. "Captain, I'm sure you've seen the reports," Kim began. "Yes, Admiral. New Seoul is gone. All of it." "The attack wasn't random," General Shin spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet but carried an authority that made everyone listen. "Our intelligence indicates this was a test of their new assault doctrines. They're preparing for a full invasion of human space." "How long do we have?" Taeho asked. "Days, maybe hours. Veltar fleets are already moving toward our core systems. But that's not why I'm calling." Kim leaned forward. "Captain, we're accelerating protocol revelation. You're going to make one final diplomatic attempt. Admiral, with respect, diplomacy has failed. The Council made that clear." "This isn't for the Council," General Shin said. "This is for the historical record. When the galaxy asks why humanity stopped pretending to be weak, we want them to remember this moment." A new face appeared on screen. Admiral Kim Da-eun herself, the architect of humanity's long deception. Taeho had never spoken with her directly before. "Captain, I'll be accompanying your delegation to the Council, along with General Shin. We're bringing the UES Patience for this mission." Taeho knew that name. The Patience was supposedly another, diplomatic vessel, but he had heard rumors about what it really was. "Admiral, the Patience isn't cleared for Council Station approach. It's too large." "It will be today," Kim replied. "We've filed a special diplomatic request. The Council is curious enough about our emergency session to grant permission." 6 hours later, the UES Patience docked at the Council Station. Taeho watched from the Harmony's bridge as the massive ship maneuvered into position. It looked like a cargo hauler, slow and ungainly, but something about its proportions seemed wrong. "That's not a diplomatic ship," Yoon observed. "No," Taeho agreed. "It's not." The emergency council session was packed. Representatives from every major species were present, along with observers from dozens of minor powers. Word had spread that humanity was making one final appeal before their inevitable extinction. Admiral Kim walked to the center platform, flanked by General Shin and Ambassador Choi. Behind them came a dozen other humans, all wearing formal diplomatic uniforms. To the aliens watching, they looked like the last desperate delegation of a dying species. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Council," Kim began. "I am Admiral Kim Da-yoon of the United Earth Space Command. I come before you today, not as a supplicant, but as an equal." Murmurs of amusement rippled through the chamber. War Prince Kethvar stood up in his section. "The humans grow bold in their final hours," he announced. "Perhaps watching your colony. Burn has driven you mad." Kim turned to face him directly. "The destruction of New Seoul was indeed instructive, War Prince, but perhaps not in the way you intended." "What do you mean, human?" "I mean that for 3 years my species has asked for peace. We have offered friendship, trade, cultural exchange. We have pleaded for basic recognition of our right to exist. And how has the galaxy responded?" General Shin stepped forward. "The galaxy has chosen to see humanity as prey, as entertainment, as a convenient target for the Veltar Empire's ambitions." Speaker Zethkor chimed with irritation. "What is the purpose of this session? If you wish to surrender your species formally, the Council will witness the ceremony. "We're not here to surrender," Kim replied. "We're here to make one final offer." She activated a holographic display showing a map of known space. Human territory appeared as a small cluster of systems near the galactic rim. "Humanity offers the following terms for peace," Kim announced. "Immediate withdrawal of all Veltar forces from human space, recognition of human territorial sovereignty, reparations for war crimes committed against human civilians, and prosecution of those responsible for the genocide at New Sol." The laughter that erupted from the chamber was deafening. Dozens of species joined in, their various sounds of amusement creating a cacophony of contempt. Kethvar's grinding laugh was loudest of all. "Reparations? Prosecution? You demand these things of us? You who cannot even defend a single colony?" In return, Kim continued as if he hadn't spoken, "Humanity offers technological exchanges, mutual defense agreements, and a guarantee that human space will serve as a buffer zone against threats from the galactic rim." "Threats?" The Crick's representative clicked with amusement. "What threats could exist beyond your primitive systems? The same threats that drove humanity to develop certain defensive capabilities," General Shin replied quietly. Kethvar stood fully now, his 4 arms spread wide. "Enough of this comedy. I will show you what I think of human offers." He gestured to his guards, who brought forward a human prisoner. Taeho recognized him immediately. "Oh, Kyung-soo, a farmer from New Sol who had been captured during the attack. This is what happens to humans who resist the natural order," Kethvar announced, his weapon fired before anyone could react. Kyung-soo fell to the council chamber floor, his blood spreading across the polished stone. The chamber fell silent. Even species that had been laughing moments before seemed shocked by the casual murder of a prisoner during a diplomatic session. Admiral Kim looked down at the body, then back up at Kethvar. Her expression hadn't changed at all. "Thank you, War Prince," she said quietly. "You have made our choice much easier." "What choice?" Kethvar demanded. Kim turned to address the entire council. "For 3 years, humanity has maintained a careful facade. We have appeared weak because we chose to appear weak. We have seemed primitive because we chose to seem primitive. We have played the role of victims because we believed that civilized species would eventually act with justice and compassion." She paused, looking around the chamber. "You have proven us wrong. The galaxy does not reward weakness with protection. It does not answer pleas for justice with aid. It responds to suffering with entertainment and to genocide with applause." General Shin stepped forward. "Therefore, humanity formally withdraws its application for Galactic Council membership. We revoke all diplomatic protections previously extended to Council species. We withdraw all offers of technological exchange or mutual cooperation. And," Admiral Kim added, "we hereby serve notice that any further attacks on human space will be met with appropriate force." Kethvar's laughter was so violent it shook his entire section. "Appropriate force? From humans? Your entire fleet couldn't scratch the paint on my flagship." War Prince Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the conquering flame, watching Earth grow larger on his main screen. Behind him, 200 Veltar warships moved in perfect formation, the largest fleet his empire had ever assembled. "The human homeworld appears defenseless, War Prince," reported his tactical officer. "Our scouts detect only primitive orbital platforms and a handful of chemical rocket vessels." Kethvar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. As expected, the humans spent their final hour making empty threats instead of preparing their defenses. It had been exactly 60 minutes since Admiral Kim's ridiculous ultimatum at the council station. 60 minutes since she had declared that humanity would stop pretending to be courteous. The War Prince had used that hour to position his fleet for the complete conquest of human space. Today would mark the end of humanity as a free species, Their homeworld would become a Veltar trophy, and their survivors would serve as slaves across the Empire. "Open a channel to the human government," Kethvar commanded. "Let them hear their doom approaching." The communication system crackled, to life, connecting to Earth's primitive broadcast network. A human face appeared on screen, an older man with graying hair and tired eyes. "This is President Moon Jae-won of the United Earth Government," the human said. "We are receiving your transmission." Human leader, Kethvar announced. "I am War Prince Kethvar of the Veltar Empire. Your species has reached the end of its brief independence. Surrender now, and some of your people will be permitted to live as slaves." President Moon was quiet for a moment, looking directly into the camera. "War Prince, we offered you peace. We offered you friendship. We even offered you the chance to withdraw peacefully from our space. And I rejected your pathetic offers. What will you do about it?" Moon's expression hardened. "We will stop pretending to be weak." The transmission cut off. Kethvar laughed, the sound echoing across his bridge. "Begin the assault," he ordered. "Target their orbital platforms first, then their surface cities. Make it slow. I want the galaxy to watch humanity's final moments." The Veltar fleet moved. Forward, weapons charging. Earth's orbital defenses appeared pitifully small in comparison, a few dozen stations scattered around the planet like toys. "Firing solutions locked," reported the weapons officer. "All ships report ready." Fire. Energy beams lanced out from the Veltar ships, aimed at Earth's orbital platforms. The humans had built their defenses around old space stations and converted. Asteroid mining equipment. Primitive, outdated, helpless. The beams struck their targets and bounced off. "What?" Kethvar demanded. "Report!" "War Prince, our weapons had no effect. The human platforms appear to have shield generators of unknown design." "Impossible. Human technology is centuries behind ours. Increase power and fire again." The second volley was twice as strong as the first. The energy beams struck the human stations with enough force to vaporize small moons. Again, they had no effect. "War Prince," the tactical officer's voice was uncertain now. "The human platforms they're changing." On the main screen, Earth's orbital defenses were transforming. What had appeared to be simple mining stations unfolded like flowers, revealing weapon arrays and shield generators that dwarfed anything in the Veltar arsenal. "Those aren't orbital platforms," Kethvar whispered. "Those are warships." "Incoming transmission from the human fleet," his communications officer reported. "Human fleet? They only have a dozen cargo ships in the system." "War Prince, I don't think those are cargo ships." A new face appeared on screen. A human female wearing a military uniform covered in decorations. Behind her, Kethvar could see what looked like a massive command center. "This is Admiral Kim Da-un of the United Earth Space Command. War Prince Kethvar, you have attacked our homeworld. That was a mistake." "Admiral, you're supposed to be at the Council Station." "I am at the Council Station. This is a real-time quantum transmission. The human you're speaking to is aboard the UES Inevitable, which is currently positioned behind your fleet." Kethvar spun around to check his tactical displays. There were no ships behind his fleet. "The scanners showed empty space." "You're lying. Our sensors would detect any vessel." Admiral Kim smiled. "Your sensors are looking for ships that use your technology. They're not designed to detect vessels using principles your science hasn't discovered yet. Impossible. Captain Lee, decloak the inevitable." Space behind the Veltar fleet shimmered like heat waves. Slowly, the outline of a massive ship became visible. It was larger than Kethvar's flagship, sleeker, and covered in weapon arrays that seemed to bend light around them. The UES Inevitable was disguised as a cargo hauler for 2 years, Admiral Kim continued. Captain Lee Tae-ho used it to transport diplomatic supplies to the Council Station. You've seen it dozens of times without recognizing what it really was. More shapes were becoming visible around the Veltar fleet. What had appeared to be empty space was filled with human warships, all of them previously cloaked, all of them larger and more advanced than anything Kethvar had ever seen. "This is impossible," he repeated. "Human technology is primitive. Your people are barely spacefaring." "We let you think that," Admiral Kim replied. "For 3 years we've hidden our real capabilities. We've pretended to be weak while studying your weaknesses. We've acted like prey while becoming predators." Captain Lee Taeho's voice came over the communication channel. "War Prince, this is Captain Lee of the Inevitable. You are surrounded by 12 human battleships, 47 cruisers, and over 200 support vessels. Your fleet is outnumbered and outgunned." Kethvar looked at his tactical displays again. The human ships were appearing on his sensors. Now, their stealth systems deactivating one by one. His force of 200 ships was indeed surrounded. "Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields," Kethvar said, trying to sound confident. "Veltar armor is the strongest in the galaxy." "Dr. Park, would you care to explain our weapons to the War Prince?" Admiral Kim asked. A new face appeared on screen. The same human female who had been presenting evidence to the Council for months. But now she wore a military uniform with the insignia of a fleet science officer. "War Prince, I've spent 3 years studying Veltar armor composition, Dr. Parks," Somin said pleasantly. "Your shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern that changes every 3.7 seconds. Your hull armor is a crystalline matrix that becomes brittle when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies. How could you possibly know that? Because every time you attacked one of our colonies, we were watching, learning. Every piece of wreckage you left behind taught us something new about your technology." Captain Lee's voice returned. "War Prince, our weapons are specifically designed to defeat Veltar defenses. Your ships might as well be made of paper." "You're bluffing." "Chief Engineer Bay, please demonstrate our capabilities on the War Princes. Escort vessels." On the main screen, Kethvar watched as brilliant blue beams lanced out from the human ships. They struck 3 of his destroyers simultaneously. The Veltar ships simply vanished. Not destroyed in a ball of fire or explosion. They were there one moment and gone the next, as if they had never existed. "Our weapons don't just destroy your ships," Dr. Park explained cheerfully. "They unravel the atomic bonds that hold them together. Very clean, very efficient." Kethvar's bridge crew was backing away from their stations. Several of his officers were making religious gestures of protection. "This is impossible," he said again, but his voice was shaking now. "The Galactic Council would have detected human military development. Our spies would have reported it." "Your spies saw exactly what we wanted them to see," Admiral Kim replied. "Primitive ships, simple weapons, basic technology. We've been very careful to maintain that illusion." "But why? Why hide your strength?" "Because we needed to understand what we were facing. The galaxy contains dozens of spacefaring species, many of them hostile. If we had revealed our true capabilities too early, you would have united against us." Captain Lee's voice was cold now. "But you chose to see us as prey, instead of potential allies. You chose to attack our colonies and murder our people. You chose to make humanity your enemy. And now," Admiral Kim added, "you get to face the consequences of that choice." The human ships began moving, their formations shifting with a precision that made Kethvar's fleet look clumsy by comparison. They were faster than anything he had ever seen, turning and accelerating in ways that should have been impossible. "War Prince," his tactical officer reported, "we're completely surrounded. All escape routes are blocked." "Then we fight," Kethvar declared. "All ships engage the human vessels. Show them what Veltar warriors can do." The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 6 minutes and 43 seconds. Veltar energy weapons struck human shields and dissipated harmlessly. Human weapons fired in response, and Veltar ships ceased to exist. The mighty conquering, flame, pride of the Veltar Navy, lasted 8 seconds longer than the rest, only because the humans wanted to keep Kethvar alive to witness his fleet's destruction. When it was over, 200 Veltar warships had been reduced to empty space. Only the conquering flame remained, its weapons disabled and its engines dead. The news of the Veltar fleet's destruction spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every civilized world knew the impossible truth. Humanity had annihilated the most powerful military force in known space without losing a single ship. Speaker Zethkor of the E3 stood in his crystalline chambers, watching the reports flood in from across council space. His advisors moved around him like nervous insects, their forms flickering with anxiety. The War Prince's testimony has been verified by 17 independent sources, his chief aide reported. 200 Veltar warships were destroyed in less than 7 minutes. The human fleet showed technological capabilities that exceed our most optimistic projections. Zethkor's crystalline body pulsed with colors that indicated deep concern. How long have they been hiding this level of advancement? Unknown, Speaker, but analysis of their diplomatic missions suggests they have been deliberately concealing their true nature for at least 3 years. 3 years. For 3 years, the humans had sat in council chambers while aliens mocked their primitive technology and laughed at their pleas for help. For 3 years, they had watched their colonies burn while pretending to be helpless. Summon an emergency session of the full council, Zethkor commanded. Contact every member species immediately. We need to understand what we're dealing with. But the humans were already making their position clear to the galaxy. General Shin Dong-wook stood on the bridge of the UES Patience, which was no longer disguising itself as a simple diplomatic vessel. The ship's true form was visible now, a massive command carrier bristling with weapons that made Veltar battleships look like toys. "Begin the broadcast," he ordered. The transmission went out on all council frequencies, reaching every inhabited world in known space simultaneously. General Shin's image appeared on billions of screens, his expression calm but unmistakably dangerous. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began. "I am General Shin Dong-wook of the United Earth Military Command. Today, human forces destroyed the Veltar invasion fleet that threatened our homeworld. This action was taken in self-defense after 3 years of attempted diplomacy failed to stop attacks on human civilians." The broadcast switched to tactical recordings of the battle. Alien viewers watched in stunned silence as human ships materialized from nowhere and systematically erased the most feared fleet in the galaxy. For too long, the Galactic Council has ignored the suffering of weaker species. General Shin continued. "You have allowed the strong to prey upon the weak because it was convenient. You have permitted slavery, genocide, and conquest because it did not affect your own interests." The image changed to show human colonies that had been attacked by the Veltar, burned cities, empty schools, graves of families who had died asking for help that never came. Humanity will no longer ask for your protection. We will no longer beg for your justice. From this moment forward, we will enforce both, according to our own standards. Captain Lee Tae-ho watched the broadcast from the bridge of the inevitable. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring the galaxy's reaction to humanity's revelation. "Communications are going crazy across all frequencies," reported Yoon Hae-jin. "Every species is trying to contact their governments. Some are demanding immediate military mobilization." "And the others?" Lee asked. "The others are requesting immediate diplomatic contact with Earth." Dr. Park So-min looked up from her analysis console. "Captain, we're detecting massive fleet movements across council space. It looks like several species are moving their military assets toward defensive positions." Lee nodded. This was expected. The galaxy's major powers would need time to process what they had learned. Some would see humanity as a threat to be contained. Others would recognize an opportunity for alliance. "Any word from the Veltar Empire itself?" he asked. "Complete communications blackout," Yoon replied. "But our intelligence assets report emergency sessions of their high command. The destruction of their invasion fleet has caused a political crisis. The broadcast continued with Admiral Kim appearing on screen. She spoke from what appeared to be a massive space station, its interior revealing technology that made Council facilities look primitive. "The Galactic Council will convene in 72 hours, she announced. "All member species are invited to attend. Humanity will present its requirements for peaceful coexistence." "Requirements," Lee muttered. "Not requests, not proposals, requirements." "Ambassador." "Choi will represent humanity at this session," Admiral Kim continued. "However, he will not be making the same kind of diplomatic appeals you have heard before. The time for begging is over." The scene shifted to show Ambassador Choi Min-ho, but he looked different now. Instead of the tired diplomat who had spent years being mocked by alien representatives, he appeared confident and determined. "Honored representatives," Choi said, addressing the camera directly, "when I return to the council chamber, I will not be asking for your help. I will be informing you of humanity's new policies regarding galactic civilization." The broadcast ended, leaving the galaxy to contemplate this new reality. 3 days later, the Galactic Council chamber was fuller than it had ever been. Representatives from every member species were present, along with observers from dozens of minor powers. The mood was tense, fearful, and uncertain. Ambassador Choi walked to the center platform, but he was not alone. Admiral Kim and General Shin flanked him, their presence a clear reminder of humanity's newfound military power. "Honored representatives," Choi began, "humanity comes before you today not as supplicants, but as equals. We have demonstrated our capability to defend ourselves. Now we will establish the terms under which we will coexist with galactic civilization." Speaker Zeth Kor activated his translation matrix. "The Council recognizes the Earth delegation. What are your requirements?" Choi activated a holographic display showing the known galaxy. Human space appeared in blue, while areas of concern were highlighted in red. "First," Choi announced, "all slavery within Council space will cease immediately. Species that currently practice slavery have 30 standard days to free all sentient beings held in bondage." The chamber erupted in protests. The Crick's representatives' mandibles clicked furiously. "Impossible! Our entire economy depends on worker castes." "Your economy will adapt," Admiral Kim replied coldly, "or it will be adapted for you." "Second," Choi continued, "reparations will be paid to all species victimized by Veltar aggression. The Veltar Empire will surrender 50% of its military assets to a joint commission for redistribution to their former victims." War Prince Kethvar, who had been allowed to attend as the sole surviving Veltar representative, remained silent. His empire was in chaos, and he had no authority to negotiate. Third, the Galactic Council will establish humanitarian standards that apply to all member species. These standards will be enforced by joint council human monitoring teams. "And if we refuse?" asked the representative from the Sulari methane breathers. General Shin stepped forward. "Then you will discover why the Veltar fleet no longer exists." The threat was unmistakable. Humanity had revealed enough of its military capability to destroy any known fleet. They were offering cooperation, but they were also making it clear that cooperation was not optional. "Fourth," Choi continued, "humanity will be granted a permanent seat on the Council with veto power over all military actions. No species will be permitted to attack another without Council approval." "This is extortion," the Ethri speaker protested. "This is justice," Admiral Kim replied. "For 3 years you ignored our pleas for help while our people died. Now you will help us ensure that no other species suffers the same fate." The debate that followed lasted for 18 hours. Species that had never agreed on anything found themselves united in their opposition to humanity's demands. But they were also united in their fear of humanity's capabilities. In the end, the vote was closer than expected, but decisive. 31 species voted to accept humanity's requirements, 11 voted against, and 5 abstained. The motion passes, Speaker Zethkor announced, his crystalline form flickering with resignation. Humanity is granted permanent council membership with the stated authorities. 3 months later, Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the UES Courtesy Extended, humanity's newest vessel. They were patrolling former Veltar space, which was now under humanitarian occupation by joint Human Council forces. Status report, Lee requested. Commander Seo-ji Hyun, his new first officer, consulted her datapad. The former Veltar colonies are adapting well to the new administration. Slavery has been eliminated, and reconstruction efforts are ahead of schedule. Any resistance? Some minor protests from former Veltar nobility, but nothing organized. Most of the population seems to prefer human rule to their previous government. Lee nodded. The Veltar people themselves had suffered under their empire's military culture. Many of them welcomed the stability that human occupation provided. What about the galaxy at large? Several species have requested technology sharing agreements. The Athri want to learn about our stealth systems. The Netheri are interested in our medical advances. Even some of the species that voted against us are now asking for trade deals.